After trading for a slot cornerback on Wednesday, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are preparing to move Cooper DeJean to outside corner. I'll tell you why that's the best plan for 2025. Coming up right here on Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Wednesday edition of the show. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. We are brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONNFL. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Howie Roseman has made his move before next week's NFL trade deadline. Feel like every single year the Eagles are in contention. He does something, right? Outside of really a couple seasons where they were just juggernauts like last year. Normally he makes a move. 2017, it was Jay Ajayi. 2018, Golden Tate. 2019 was a disaster. It was Jannard Avery. But pretty much every season they've been like in the playoffs competing for a Super Bowl. Not just a wild card, but competing for a championship. They've made this kind of move. Like Robert Quinn, Kevin Byard. The list goes on and on. Well, today the Eagles added much-needed help at cornerback, agreeing to trade wide receiver John Mechie and a 2027 sixth-round pick for New York Jets slot cornerback Michael Carter II and a 2027 seventh-round pick. I do like that the Eagles went for a cornerback before the deadline. This was the position to target over edge rusher, over any position on the offensive line, over a defensive tackle. Now, is Howie Roseman done? Maybe not. But this was the move. If he was going to make one, it had to be at cornerback because the musical chairs of Keely Ringo, Ja'Cory Bennett, Adoree Jackson, it was going to hurt you all season. And none of those guys were going to play consistently enough to give Vic Fangio a clear and concise answer about who to feature, who to start down the stretch in the playoffs, competing for a Super Bowl. I just don't think you can have those three players out there all the time and expect them to hold up like Darius Slay did last year as your second or third corner. Michael Carter comes in, and while because of injuries and up and down play, like he's not this Denzel Ward type of acquisition or Reek Woolen from the Seattle Seahawks. Like he's not that caliber of corner, and he's not an outside corner to begin with. He has played 85 to 90% of his snaps over 4 years, primarily as an inside nickel corner. So it's not the splash outside corner move maybe you thought Howie Roseman would look to make. But I really like this move because even with Carter's ups and downs, he's only 26 years old. And in 2023, he had the best statistical season of any slot corner in the NFL. Pro Football Focus had him as the number one overall graded nickel defender. And just to pull up a couple stats from that year, and again, this was a couple seasons ago, but for a 26-year-old in a Vic Fangio scheme where Fangio normally gets the best out of most of his personnel, it's a safe bet to assume he'll be a solid role player. He'll be an upgrade at least over what Ringo has been, Bennett even, and Adoree Jackson. He finished that season with the fewest yards allowed in slot coverage with 195 on the year, the fewest receptions allowed in slot coverage at 25, and the fewest yards allowed per slot coverage snap at 0.54. So I think this is just an upgrade at corner in a vacuum. The player himself on the field instead of one of those other three is an upgrade. Maybe not a substantial one, but it's definitely an upgrade. A guy that's had elite production in the past, and it allows you to now move Cooper DeJean to the outside. And although I do not want that for the future, I do not want Cooper DeJean as an outside corner long term. I think he is, when he is in the slot, he is the best nickel cornerback in all of football. But for 2025, I think DeJean playing on the outside and Michael Carter, somebody like Carter in the slot, is the best combination that you could get this year at this position. Like Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean on the outside with a Michael Carter in the slot, I think is a lot better than what the alternatives were at this point. It's definitely better than Coop in the slot and Ringo, Jackson, or Bennett on the outside. And when you look at like who else was going to be available for a trade, the Eagles were not going to get Reek Woolen. I don't think they wanted that type of player. I don't think Seattle was making him available after a bounce-back game last week against Houston. A guy like Denzel Ward is just not going to be available unless you're trading the Browns like a first-round pick in the future. So, I liked the idea of a Rasul Douglas reunion, but I don't think that was very realistic for what they were looking for. I want DeJean in the slot long term, but for 2025, I do think this was the best move you can make, where you get the best combination of three corners on the field. DeJean is a much better slot corner than a boundary, but I do feel like he has proven this season that he can cover the best of the best. Like, he's not just slot dependent. Like, you look at the past, like the Eagles have had some really good slot defenders. Patrick Robinson in 2017. The year after, Cravon LeBlanc in 2018. Going back before that, Brandon Boykin. Even before that, Husilio Hansen. Like, the Eagles have had some really good slot corners. But those guys could not play on the boundary. Look at some of the receivers that Cooper DeJean has done a great job on this year. Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. You look at Emeka Egbuka against Tampa Bay, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, that game against the Minnesota Vikings, CeeDee Lamb against the Dallas Cowboys. Like, Coop has shown this year that he can go up against those star receivers in the NFL and he can take them out of games. Now, is he a Quinyon Mitchell caliber outside corner? Like, no, I think Cooper DeJean in the slot is the number one slot corner in the league. Cooper DeJean on the outside is not a top 5 boundary corner, but I still think you can make the argument he can be a top 20, top 15, top 32. Like, he's going to be an above average, I think, a star on the boundary. I think it would be naive to say, even though I think he has some limitations on the boundary compared to the slot, and it's why when he was drafted, we projected him on the show to play more exclusively in the nickel or at safety. But seeing how good he's been in every way over the last 2 years, even with those limitations, it's hard to not expect he's going to be a really, really good outside cornerback. And that's what he played exclusively at the University of Iowa. So it's not like it's this brand new position for him. So yeah, again, I wouldn't say he's as good as Quinyon. They're not, he's just going to be a top 5 corner on the boundary like he is in the slot. But I think he's going to be an above average starter, if not still an excellent starter on the outside. And with Quinyon Mitchell still shadowing team's star receivers, the number one guy, it's going to make it easier on DeJean. So yeah, I mean, again, ideally you have your best players at their best positions to fully maximize elite talent. But I don't think DeJean moving to the outside weakens 2 positions at all. I think DeJean is still a A+ player on the boundary. He's maybe not A+, but he's an A player. And Michael Carter, we'll see what you have. Again, the numbers don't look great over the last year and a half, but I want to believe that's more about injuries, because this guy is only 26 years old and he has had elite moments in the NFL. You now pair him with 2 other elite corners it's going to make it easier on him, a really good defense, and the best defensive mind in football in Vic Fangio. Yeah, again, I don't think this was like a blockbuster type of deal. And if Michael Carter isn't great and he's the next Jannard Avery, Kevin Byard type of Robert Quinn disappointing trade deadline move, I wouldn't be shocked. And if that is the case, I'm putting DeJean back inside. If Carter's like a liability against the run, I'm putting Coop back inside and, going back to the Ringo, Bennett, Jackson musical chairs. But I would predict that Carter is going to be a much better player and a much more consistent player. I think he's a floor raiser for the secondary compared to what you had with those other 3. So I like the move right now. Is it a move that I want for the long-term future of this team? No. I want DeJean in the slot. I think they're going to have to draft somebody early, eventually at outside corner, or sign somebody more prominent in free agency next year in that unrestricted pool. But for now, I really do think this was maybe the best kind of move you can make, where now DeJean can play on the outside with Carter in the slot. I just don't know who else you would have acquired on the outside at this point of the deadline. That's not my guy in Rasul Douglas. So overall, I like the trade. My expectations aren't through the roof. But again, I think Carter's a safe bet to be an upgrade over just, again, the merry-go-round of CB3s you had before this. All right, guys, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, the Eagles are 6-2, 8 games through the 2025 season already, which I know is shocking to me as well. Midseason awards coming up right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anybody else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same attention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail. From the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery, you can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like the players, they sweat every detail at Mazda because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Guys, today's show is also sponsored by Gametime. The NFL season is back, and like I said, we're halfway through the year already. Unbelievable. There's nothing better than being at the stadium, surrounded by fans, cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets, it often can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and price jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I personally use Gametime. It's the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. So you'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay at checkout. I pulled up Gametime just the other day to buy Eagles-Bears tickets for the Black Friday game in November. In just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. Eagles tickets for as low as $100. The app is made super simple, and you can see the exact view of your seat before you buy. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. The Eagles were busy at work today, trading for a cornerback before next week's NFL trade deadline. Michael Carter II coming over from the New York Jets. Joe Douglas is actually the one that brought him in to New York 4 years ago. Douglas now works again with the Eagles in their front office. 26-year-old slot corner. I don't hate the move. I think long-term, they need to make other moves for the future at cornerback to complement Cooper DeJean in the slot and Quenya Mitchell on the outside. But for 2025, that was the best move you could make. At 6-2, the Eagles now get much-needed help at corner. Things are looking up heading into the bye week, riding a 2-game win streak, 4 games over 500. It's definitely been a roller coaster ride of a season with a lot of crazy close wins against some really good teams. Some of these wins have left you feeling like you have more questions than answers. And then you had the 2-game losing streak. All hell broke loose. There's been so much A.J. Brown drama. You know, like every year, it's been a very eventful season in Philadelphia covering this football team. But I will say, after these last 2 wins, like the vibes right now feel pretty high, and I do feel like this team is setting itself up to go on another run like they have the last 3 years with this core competing for Super Bowls. At 6-2, who shined the brightest? Let's do some midseason awards right now on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Who's been the MVP, the most valuable player on the offensive side of the football? This one probably will not shock you, but it is Jalen Hurts. It is the quarterback. I know Jalen has had some ups and downs this year. He's had a couple games where he looks like a complete star in the first half, and then he looks like one of the worst players in the league in the second half, or vice versa. But overall, when you look at the context of the situation Jalen's had to deal with this year, how much he's had to overcome, an injured offensive line, an inconsistent run game, a new play caller that for a month and a half just looked like a complete mess, a disgruntled wide receiver 1 that just felt like he had something to say negative after every game, or the body language was just really bad. A really tough schedule, playing some of the best in both conferences. Jalen Hurts has had to deal with a lot this year, and he's had his own issues that he's had to work through. And yet here he is getting this football team to 6-2. Like, nobody is a better quarterback at handling crisis in this league than Jalen Hurts is. And again, he has not been extraordinary this year, but when you add on the last 2 elite performances against the Giants and the Vikings, when you combine the elite first halves of the Tampa Bay game, the Denver game, the second half heroics against the Los Angeles Rams, I think a very underrated performance in the season opener against the Dallas Cowboys. Some clutch plays late in the game, week 2 against the Kansas City Chiefs. Overall, I think Jalen Hurts is the MVP of the offense. The entire unit as a whole has been very inconsistent. So I think without Jalen Hurts as your quarterback, even with his ups and downs this year, if you have a lot of other quarterbacks as a starter of the situation this offense has been through in 2025, I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that would have this team instead of at 6-2, they're at 3-5, 4-4, 2-6. Jalen Hurts has overcome a lot. Even if the numbers haven't always told you that game after game, Jalen Hurts has elevated you through crisis mode yet again, like he does, it feels like, every single season. And so for that, I think he's definitely the MVP of the offense. What about the defense? This one is a lot tougher because it feels like each game there's been a different star of the defense. Week 1, it was Jahad Campbell. Week 2, it was Drew Makuba. Week 3, it was Jordan Davis. Week 4, it was Quinyon Mitchell. Last week, the last 2 weeks, it's been Jalix Hunt. So the defense, and that's a good thing. There's been a lot of contributors. This has been the more consistent unit so far through 8 games. And I think all 3 levels have taken their turns kind of carrying the defense, carrying the team overall. Like the pass rush has done it the last few games. The secondary was really doing it the first month. The linebackers as well. Gun to my head, if I had to pick an MVP, and this was really tough, but I'm personally going to say that it's Quinyon Mitchell. I think Quinyon Mitchell has been the most valuable player because when you just look at his role so far this year, he's traveled with star receivers all season, and he's shut them down. Emeka Ibuka in Tampa Bay, Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua against the Los Angeles Rams. Like Quinyon, unlike last year, is playing a lot more man coverage. They're putting him on an island. They're saying, you are shadowing. Your job today is to take out the other team's wide receiver 1. They did not put that much on his plate last year because they had Darius Slay on the outside. They had Cooper DeJean in the slot. Because this year's cornerback play has been so inconsistent on the boundary, and they've wanted to keep Cooper DeJean in the slot, Quinyon has had to pick up. He's had to really carry the load on the boundary, and you do not win that game in Tampa Bay without Quinyon Mitchell. And I think that game, that might be the game that gets you the number 1 seed. And Mitchell was the best player on the field, and he completely shut down Justin Jefferson in a win against Minnesota, completely locked down Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams in another win against the Rams. Like when you have a number 1 corner in the NFL that can do this for you week in and week out, it gives Vic Fangio so much more optionality with his personnel, with his coverage schemes, with what he can do with the defensive line, with linebackers. And Quinyon has been that guy. You look at the Eagles, statistically, their passing defense is top 5 in almost every category. They're so good in the red zone. They're so good on third down. They don't get beat deep. And Mitchell is the main part of that. And so it's tough. You could say it's been Zach Bond. It's been Jahad Campbell. It's been Jordan Davis or Jalix Hunt. I don't know. Like you could even say Cooper DeJean. But for me, I personally right now would say that Quinyon Mitchell has been the most valuable player. And look what happened the one game he goes down against the New York Giants. Everything completely falls apart in that game, and the Giants win that football game. So I would say Quinyon, as of right now, is the MVP so far. All right, breakout player of the season so far. Through 8 games, defensive tackle Moro Ajoma. And I said it on Twitter earlier today. It is so satisfying when a day 3 my guy that you have in the NFL draft actually pans out, actually is as good as you said he was going to be. And for him to do it on your team, it is so satisfying. Moro Ajoma was one of my favorite prospects in the 2023 draft. I loved his pass rush ability from an interior perspective coming out of Texas, and he has been that guy and more. He's even exceeded my expectations. He's been better than Milton Williams was in 2024, a career year that got Williams a bag by New England, who's now paying him what? Is it $24 to $26 million a year? And yet Moro Ajoma this year has not only made sure that you don't miss Milton Williams from 2024, he's been better than what Milton was last year, and he's been better than what Williams has been in New England this year. And Milton's been pretty good with the Patriots, but Ajoma leads the team in sacks with 4. He has more pressures and sacks than Williams did last year and this year through 8 games. He's the 9th highest graded defensive tackle according to Pro Football Focus. Like, Jalix Hunt was a close second. Jalix Hunt leads the Eagles in pressures with 28, but Ajoma's sacks have come in such crucial moments late in games. He's been so good against the run. Jalen Carter's been in and out of the lineup, and yet even when Carter isn't there, Ajoma is still winning his pass rush reps and getting to the quarterback. You could argue he's been their most consistent pass rusher, whether you combine edge rushers or not, and just talk about interior players. Ajoma's been the breakout player of the year so far through 8 games. All right, one more award before we take a break. How about the biggest pleasant surprise? I'm going to say it's edge rusher Josh Uche, considering the contract they gave him. 1-year deal, very little guarantees, a healthy scratch last year with the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And yet now, Josh Uche looks like the 2022 version that had double-digit sacks in New England. This is the guy that looks like the second-round pick from 2020 coming out of Michigan. Uche has 20 pressures this year already. He's the 13th highest-graded edge rusher on Pro Football Focus. And I actually think he's been a very underrated run defender, too, on the edge. Like, he's been more than a situational pass rusher that can only play in obvious pass rush passing situations on, like, 3rd and long. Uche has been a guy that has been out there for all 3 downs at a time. And when you look at what they're getting production-wise, considering the money they're spending on him, so much bang for your buck. Like, this was such a bargain move. And this is why Howie Roseman at times takes chances on really talented players that were top picks in the draft. And he hopes that with a better environment, better coaching, they can get the most out of that player for very, very cheap. And I like that strategy. And it really, like, it didn't work as well with Azeez Ojulari, but it definitely worked with Josh Uche. And Uche is a reason that I'm good with not trading for any edge rusher before next week's deadline. I think Uche is a very solid top 3 player in this rotation, and he's been the best pleasant surprise of 2025. All right, guys, we'll wrap up midseason awards coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, guys, we're wrapping up this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks, as always, for making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure your second listen is the Locked On NFL podcast. 2 episodes a day, Monday through Friday. Tyler, the Madman, rolling, gets you started with a shot of espresso for your football morning. And then, of course, my man, Tony Wiggins. Wig takes you into the barbershop for your afternoon delight. 2 shows a day. Subscribe to Locked On NFL wherever you get Locked On Eagles. Midseason awards as we wrap up 2025's award show for this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles. Let's continue with some more individual awards. And this one is called Earning the Bag. And it's going to go to Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert already, in just 8 games, has 7 receiving touchdowns this year. That is tied for the most in the NFL with Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. And Dallas Goedert, when you think about it, I mean, what a season he's having. Yes, he was injured early in the year, which is frustrating, but this team made him take a pay cut, and he was not able to really get an extension elsewhere either. I think if he was able to find one, the Eagles would have traded him. He basically had no choice but to take a $4 million pay cut this year. And now he's one of the best red zone weapons in all of football. 7 touchdowns. He's been one of the more underrated big time role players for this football team this year. The reason they're the best red zone offense in football mostly goes to Goddard. I mean, Kevin Patullo, when he's really in his bag, it's drawing things up for Dallas Goedert. And so I think next year, I don't know, like I said on the show the other day, I don't know if it's going to be with the Eagles, but Goddard's earning a payday next year. Somebody is going to pay this guy, I think, a big contract. Even with the injuries, he's just so talented. He's so versatile, such a complete, diverse skill set, and he's showing that this year. And when you think about it, like the resume he's been building in Philadelphia, the legacy that he's building through 8 seasons, I think it's extremely underrated, and it's probably because he's following up a Hall of Famer in Zach Ertz, who's the greatest Eagles tight end of all time, that, you know, almost was the all-time leading receiver in franchise history, caught the game-winning touchdown in their first ever Super Bowl. Like Zach Ertz is a legend in Philly. So Goddard, who was also the number 2, the backup to Ertz for the first 3 years of his career, I feel like has kind of almost gone under the radar because of Ertz, because of the injuries as well. Quietly, though, he's putting together a very underrated legacy in Eagles history. Like, he has now been here. Zach Ertz played 9 seasons in Philadelphia. Goddard's at year 8. He's been to 2 Super Bowls with this team. He's one of the best playoff performers in franchise history. And the only reason the numbers aren't there like they were for Zach Ertz is, I think, a lot of it's health, of course, which, you know, that's on Dallas Goedert, right? Zach Ertz was able to be a very durable player. But a lot of it's also circumstance. Like when Zach Ertz was the Eagles' tight end, this team had no weapons. So they force-fed Ertz. He was the featured player in this offense for a very long time. Dallas Goedert had to share targets with Ertz for, again, from 2018 to 2021. Then when Ertz leaves, they get A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and then Saquon Barkley. So Goddard's always had to share his offense with a lot of other elite weapons at his position, at receiver, at running back. So the numbers aren't there legacy-wise compared to somebody like Zach Ertz, but I think Goddard's an all-time great at this position in franchise history, and I don't think he gets the recognition he deserves, and maybe when his time in Philadelphia is up, he will get that. Maybe he's an Eagle for life. Maybe they do give him an extension. I would love it. Personally, I don't know what else you're going to do at tight end next year outside of draft one in the first couple of rounds, and I want to save those picks for drafting, you know, trench players on both sides of the ball. And, you know, he's still in his prime. I know the injuries are there, and it's concerning. And in the open market, he'll probably get a better deal elsewhere, but I would love for him to be an Eagle for life. I would like him to be here beyond 2025. But if it is just this year, I think he has a very underrated legacy in Philadelphia, underappreciated. And I think what he's doing this season is very underappreciated. 7 touchdowns in 8 games is pretty crazy. Another award here for an offensive player. How about an all-pro breakout? And that goes to Devontae Smith, who leads the Eagles in receiving. 6th in the NFL this year in receiving yards. Throughout the last month, only Jamar Chase has more receiving yards than Devontae Smith. And Devontae has always been good. From the minute he touched his first ever reception, which was for a touchdown in Atlanta, 2021 in his NFL debut, he has been a go-to player in this offense. He was elite in 2022, 2023, 2024. The best, I think, playoff receiver in franchise history. One of the most clutch players that we've ever seen in Eagles history at the wide receiver position in the history of football. But this year, I really do feel like he's taking another step. Like he is having an all-pro breakout year. And if he continues on this trajectory, he's going to be at least a second team all-pro. And I know I gave the MVP award to Jalen Hurts for the offensive side of the ball, but you could argue even with Jalen included in this conversation, Devontae has been their most consistent offensive player. So I thought he definitely deserved an award, and he gets the all-pro breakout of the year so far through 8 games. And then one more award here for the defensive side of the ball. The most improved player goes to defensive tackle Jordan Davis. And I got to eat crow. I didn't think he was going to be able to do it. I didn't think he would take a Vita Vea, Dexter Lawrence type of step here in year 4. But he's doing it. Jordan Davis already has 3 sacks on the season, which is a career high. He's on pace for a total that's normally what Vita Vea gets, what Dexter Lawrence gets, and that's what we wanted for him. That's what the Eagles envisioned in 2022 when they traded up for him in the first round inside the top 20. Like, yeah, being just a great elite run defender is awesome, and it's a very important role to have in this defense with lighter boxes, but they expected more out of him with the skill set that he has, and they're getting it this year. Like, he is getting to the quarterback very consistently, already has 3 sacks in 8 games. He's been able to play a career high in snaps. And also, like I said with Moro Ujoma, Jalen Carter has been up and down this year. He missed the first game, getting tossed out. He's had injuries that kept him out of other games. There's been conditioning things with Carter. He's kind of been inconsistent so far this year, not the world breaker player we saw from 2024. And Jordan Davis has really been able to kind of carry the load a bit with Carter still finding his way this season. And he's on top of all of that still been the elite run defender that we're used to. So for me, the most improved player of the season goes to Jordan Davis. And I know Dallas Goedert got the Earn the Bag award, but talk about somebody earning a bag. Jordan Davis is going to get a big extension from this football team, I think, next offseason. Let me know what you think. Hit us up on X at LockedOnBirds, at DiBiase LOE. Subscribe to Locked On Eagles on YouTube and wherever you get the show. Thanks as always for making us your first listen each and every day. And as always, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening. And let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.